I want to bring in Buck Sexton right now, former CIA officer. Buck, good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Your thoughts on Mike Pompeo?
I think Pompeo is a fantastic choice. He's going to have support both from within the intel community. He's going to have support automatically on the military side for being somebody who went to West Point, the top of his class. He served his country. And he also has a lot of support from within conservative circles and even the Tea Party. So he covers a lot of bases. He's also just known as a really smart, hardworking, on top of it guy. And when you hear people from inside the intel community who have had to deal with somebody who's been a member of Congress, for example, a lot of times they say they show up and they either just want to grandstand or they don't really know much. Pompeo was always thought of as being somebody who really did his homework and knew exactly what was going on in all those briefings. So he has a really good reputation.
Do you see this delay then as justified? Do you see it as a delay that we haven't? I mean, this time for Obama's presidency, he had 7 of his cabinet picks confirmed at this time. Trump has 2.
Well, I think the Chuck Schumer clips that were played before show you everything you really need to know. There's a very clear effort underway to do everything possible to undermine the Trump presidency before it even took office, and now, of course, from the beginning, I think, to hamstring it as much as possible. And the delay with these nominees, they're going to get through. Republicans obviously have the majority that they need. The Republicans that were a little skittish about Rex Tillerson seem like they're coming around. Marco Rubio, maybe the last of all of them, but I think he's doing that for Marco Rubio reasons as much as anything else. I think this is just the Democrats trying to score points. These are all very qualified nominees.
Newt said that yesterday.
Buck, what's the biggest concern with Pompeo? Is it his policies on enhanced torture, for instance? Because he seemed to answer them during some of the hearings.
He does seem to be somebody who would be willing to consider at least bringing back enhanced interrogation techniques. That would be something that would have to also be addressed, though, I think, by the Congress in law. I don't think that this is something
he said.
Yes, and that was his answer, because it's true. And also on surveillance, he tends to be more hawkish, and he tends to be somebody that believes in mass surveillance. That's in line with the Trump administration, or at least with Donald Trump, I should say. And I think that therefore is a position that we'll see play out over time. The American people were not as upset about domestic surveillance, or whatever we want to call it, as I think a lot of the left and even some on the right and civil libertarians and journalists thought they would be. So we'll have to see. And enhanced interrogation, though, the question then becomes, would you actually make this a policy, or would you leave the door open? People say the door is, in a sense, open. All you have to do is change existing policy.
So, Buck, what I'm curious about is you have three different nominees, you know, Pompeo, Mattis, and Tillerson, who have expressed some real differences in their policy views versus what Donald Trump has said in the campaign and now in office, especially related to the Iran deal, related to TPP, and then related to torture and waterboarding, as Lauren just mentioned. So who's going to win out here? You know, is Trump kind of said, oh, I'm going to devolve to my cabinet members and I'm going to let them make the decisions, or is he going to stick with his campaign promises? Because it's a difficult situation there.
I think this is another one of these exaggerated narratives that comes mostly from the Democrat side of things. Of course, there are going to be people in administration with dynamic figures who have tremendous backgrounds and experiences of their own to bring to bear. That they would all line up with the president would be, quite honestly, bizarre, especially given all these different...
Tiller said on the Iran deal, he said it's not going to be good for America to withdraw from this and go renege on their promises. I mean, that is a huge difference from Donald Trump.
It's a difference, but at the end of the day, Donald Trump is not just the commander-in-chief, he's also the chief executive of the executive branch of the government, and the Secretary of State doesn't run his or her own foreign policy. He has to execute what the president tells him or her to do, and so they may bring these diverse views to the table, but ultimately, I think it's better for Donald Trump to be in a position where he's hearing from people that he respects who disagree with him. I remember under the Obama administration, it was a team of rivals. This notion that you would have people not only who might have different points of view, but actually would challenge the president, sort of challenge his authority.
But it didn't change his mind.
Didn't change his mind, and they didn't challenge his authority. But that was the story we were being told, whereas now it's because there's not unanimity across the board. There's going to be some sort of dysfunction in government. Just don't believe it, don't buy it, and I think it's another effort to make the transition look wobbly, and now the administration look discombobulated.
Buck, let's talk for a second about Michael Flynn. We're reporting on the front page today that counter-surveillance officials are looking at his contacts with the Russians leading up to the inauguration, actually back in December. What do you make of this story? Is this narrative about Trump's connections to Russia going to go away?
Well, I really want to know how this information keeps finding its way into the press. I mean, that is question one for me, because a lot of the information that we're seeing seems at least like it would be derived from perhaps very classified sources, and it certainly appears to be leaks from within the intel community. You're asking me essentially to speculate on what will come of Flynn's connections to Russia. He worked for RT. I personally would never have gone on RT. There are some things that General Flynn did that I think perhaps showed a lapse in judgment.
That's
but
the
not
Russian
a lapse.
television.
That's RT. That's Kremlin-sponsored television.
Yeah.
It's not what I would have done, but it's also a free country, and there's nothing illegal or immoral inherently in doing it. In terms of the connections with Russia, I think we keep seeing a lot of smoke, but not a lot of fire here. This is the continuing narrative. They keep saying
Sean Spicer already handled that topic. He said, yeah, they spoke on the phone late in December to set up a meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin, yet it comes up again.
Right, and that's an instance of how would somebody know that a U.S. citizen is making a call to a Russian ambassador, by the way. It's an important question, because if that's the sort of thing that's making its way to the press, then you do have a very serious problem to address. And
we know that John Brennan has been very critical of Donald Trump.
Absolutely. Oh, he was very critical of the speech that was given over the weekend.
Right.
He said it was an abomination. And I think when you look at Flynn in the conversation with the Russian ambassador, well, he's not going to speak to a Russian ambassador beforehand. People act as though this is undermining undermining policy going into the future. This is his counterpart. This is who he's going to be working with in a matter of weeks. There's no rule that says you can't talk to anybody until you're actually the president. And once Democrats start doing things like invoking laws that have actually never been successfully used once in the history of the law, and go back to the origins of this country, which they were talking about with the Logan Act, which has never actually been used to prosecute anybody successfully. I think there was maybe one actual case brought ever, a couple hundred years. That's when they're grasping and they're desperate.
Yeah. Bottom line, do you think his picks get confirmed? Do you agree with what Mitch McConnell said, that all of the nominees will in fact get confirmed? Do you think so?
Oh, I think so. I think there is the possibility you may have a Marco Rubio holdout on Tillerson. I think the rest of them will get through. They can talk as much as they want on the Democrat side about the ethical compromises, but they haven't been able to show any that are really eyebrow-raising for someone who's taking an honest look at it. And I think that the president should get tremendous deference. And that deference, plus the Republican majority, means that these confirmations will happen.
All right, we'll leave it there. Buck, good to see you. Thanks so much. Buck Sexton joining us.